Shri Mataji, Maureen, Mark, Pat, Grazyna, Djamel, Graham, and Gail, thank you so much for joining this evening for a recollection of your times with Shri Mataji and how she got you to set up what is called an ashram. Now, ashram is a very old term. It's a Sanskrit word which you know it's a spiritual retreat, a place of learning. So when was it that Shri Mataji actually asked you to get together, to live together so that you could meditate and do Sahaj and actually ascend together? How did that come about? Would you like to start, please, Maureen?
Okay. Well, first of all, we were meeting at one of the yogis' houses, and Pat and myself did stay there for a while, and that was in North Gower Street in London. But then Shri Mataji actually organised for us to get a place in Acton. It was Acton Lane, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And
I actually went there on the tube with Shri Mataji to look at it first.
Which year is this?
77, it must be.
1970.
yes, must have been 77. Yes,
It was some months before we started public programs.
It was on the 15th of August when she went. We went with her. Were you there when you went? And then she actually paid for put a deposit on it. You remember? 15th of August.
I remember that more with Finchley Road. With Acton, all that happened was that I went there with her on the tube, which was quite a long journey, and looked at the place. That's all. Basically.
and again, it was a flat over a shop, I think, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was over a shop.
No, it was on the first floor. That's for sure. It was a flat on the first floor with
On the first floor.
in the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it
I just remember it
had a
being
very
flat.
loud train railway thing
yeah.
at the back, and at the front we used to get really loud lorries braking all the time because it's on the hill.
Yeah, and there were only about 4 or 5 of us there, weren't there?
Yeah.
Christine, yourself, Pat, me, and Gus.
Yeah.
There's handful of you in 1977 then, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was ashram life like then in this first place that you got on Mother's instructions?
Well, not just Mother's instructions. Mother actually got it for us and paid for everything.
We didn't have the
Right.
she really got the whole thing going. Yes.
Well, Djamel,
So how did it happen? So she was in Ashley Gardens then at that time?
No, she wasn't in Ashley Gardens
Okay.
yet, I don't believe.
It was in Hurst Green then, yeah.
She was in
Hurst
her
Green
screen.
still.
So
Yeah,
she said,
yeah.
okay, so this is a place I've got for you. Take us through those conversations, please.
Pat, you say because you went and looked at it.
well, I can't remember exactly. It was a long time ago, but I think basically Mother started talking about it, and also, Maureen, you asked for a boon in India, didn't you? That we could get
Yes.
one.
Yes.
And
yeah.
then one day, Mother asked me to go out with her, which happened quite often. We'd go out looking at houses or this, all sorts of things, really.
Shopping in Oxford Street.
Yeah, or meeting people at the airport. I'd drive her out
Yeah.
there, and back, and which was quite a surreal experience, sitting at the airport with Shri Mataji, having tea, waiting to, on our own, waiting for someone to turn up. Anyway, all I remember is that Mother asked me to come with her, so we went on the tube all the way to Acton and found the place. I think it's a bit of a walk from the station.
Mm.
And we went and saw it, and I suppose we must have seen the landlord. I don't remember that particularly. And then got the tube back again. That's all I can remember.
Do you remember the date, Pat?
Maureen must have it somewhere because she kept a diary.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. Sorry.
Okay, when I went with Shri Mataji on the 15th, you see what happened? We were it was the 15th of August, I remember. And she said, today, why? There's lots of vibrations. And it was Assumption Day. So there must be lots of people worshipping Mary, the Virgin Mary, she said. And then she said, we're going to go to this place because we're booking this place, this ashram. And we went, and the guy who drove us was, you remember he was the builder, or the guy who was doing the renovation for Ashley Gardens. He was a fellow who looked more South American to me or something. Anyway, he took us and he drove us there. And I remember she probably must have paid the money or the deposit and booked it for us. And then we definitely must have moved immediately after the 15th of August.
Right, yeah. And we weren't there very long at all, were we?
How long?
Must have been there at least a month and a half, at least.
Yeah, about that.
And
Remember,
I mean, Djamel, you and I were sleeping in the lounge, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there for 2 weeks with you, and then I left to go home, and then I had to come back later.
Oh,
You were
right.
still a student, Djamel.
Yeah. I was still a student then. Yeah. And then I just finished my degree. In fact,
Okay.
just my degree then. Yeah.
Well, we were really still finding our way as to how to meditate and what to do.
So what was life like an everyday? What was a day like in the life of these Sahaja Yogis and this?
It was like a few
Right.
speakers in a flat together trying to find their way, basically.
It's not
And we were
exactly
working,
true. It's
you know,
not
we were going off and working and stuff. So, you know, it felt very experimental, I think is the best way to put it. You know,
Actually, Maureen and Pat, I think it wasn't exactly true, because you knew exactly how to meditate. In the morning, you remember, we used to get up early. We used to say all the mantras for
Yeah.
every chakra, and then you would meditate, and it was very powerful. Actually, it was extremely powerful. You know,
I mean, it was our first time of having somewhere where we could all do that together.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
And
Although we
stay.
had done that in Gavin's place before,
Yeah.
but there were less of us. But also in that Acton ashram, we had Gus, who was even newer.
Yes.
So he didn't. Can't remember what he did, but he was hardly sort of prepared for ashram life.
No.
So from this ashram where you stayed for about a month and a half, what happens next? You've meditated, you've sort of found that
We carried on as usual, living
stability?
there, meditating, and then Mother said we had another ashram to go to, sort of a thing. I can't remember how it was brought up. And we
Yeah.
Did Mother visit you? Did she visit you there in this first one?
I'm
At
trying to
Acton Lane?
remember.
I don't think so.
I don't think she came when we were there.
No, but definitely she came to the next one
Oh, very
several
much so.
times. Yeah.
So which is
And
the
that-
next one and when, please?
Regent's Park Road.
Uh-huh.
So it would have been August, September, October-ish time, I suppose.
end of September, yeah, beginning of
Yeah.
October.
Yeah.
1977.
1977. Yeah.
And we went to look at another place just before that, further down the road as well, before we, Mother, it was settled.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Mother again did everything with the landlord
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
paid the
Paid
money,
the rent.
paid the deposit or whatever.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and we all tried to get jobs.
Well, basically, we had been hippies. We'd given everything up. I know that, and Djamel was a student, so none of us had established places as such,
Oh, yeah.
and had the money for deposits.
You remember that place? It was just above a kind of DIY shop, you know.
Yeah.
a guy
Yeah. Yeah.
paint, all that. He was the owner, actually.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah. And I had a kitchen downstairs, dining room, where we all cooked.
Shri Mataji used to come to that kitchen and sit around that table.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, that's right. And we had a little garden out the front where we had a havan with Shri Mataji.
Out the back.
Yeah, out the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Well,
said out the back.
It was the front. It was the front, really, but
It was our
the back of the
entrance, but
house,
it was round the back of the house. And it was such a tiny garden, yet we managed to have a whole thing with Mother.
Oh.
It was incredible, really. Heaven knows
She
what
read
the name was.
names, yeah. She read the Vishnu Sahasranam.
Oh,
You know?
Vishnu Sahasranama. Wow.
Yeah, she read the whole Vishnu Sahasranam, yeah.
That would have taken a while.
Yeah, but it was quite fast with Shri Mataji.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. Imagine.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It was quite
Um,
fast. It was really amazing. That was that was I think my first big Havan. You know, I don't remember a Havan before that. You
yeah,
must
that
have
was
done one in Hurst Green.
it was the first big one in London. I mean, we had, as you say,
Big.
only
I
the
don't think it was that big.
No, I know, but you know, it felt big. Well, everything with
It
Mother
was
felt
very
big.
for us, it was
You know,
really big.
even if there was
Big
only
as
sort
in
of
time or as in
well,
intensity?
in importance and intensity, you know, everything with Mother felt
Yeah.
you know, sort of out of this world. So you know, you couldn't actually say it was small in numbers of people,
Hmm.
But also we
definitely.
had that drama with the fire brigade, didn't we? The
Oh,
night we moved in.
So
Oh,
is this
yeah,
Regent Park Ashram?
yes.
Do you want to briefly share with us, please, or not?
Oh, it was this chap that came. It was a friend of Djamel's actually, who was visiting, and he said he could smell burning. And we all looked around, and he said, "I'm just going to get some advice from someone." And we were all looking around for this burning smell. And then this whacking great big fire engine pulled up, two of them. Out came all the way out the back, and next thing you knew, there were ladders up and firemen and a searchlight on the building, and so firemen climbing through windows.
oh,
It's completely crazy. And then
yeah.
they called the landlord as well, and he turned up, and
Yeah.
it turned out it was just the potatoes burning in the oven. It was completely crazy.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank God for just the potatoes in the oven.
Yeah,
It was like a movie, you know. You just couldn't
yeah.
believe it was happening.
Did it have consequences with the landlord? Because it's
Well, if so, I think poor Shri Mataji had to take the
Yeah.
consequences because
She
he must have
had to
smoothed
sort
him
of
down.
calm him down, yes, because she had taken the assurances that we were all good, upstanding people who
Yeah.
got to do daft things.
Because
But
when he came after the fireman had gone, we were busy clearing the house with Ajwan, and there was just clouds of smoke everywhere. And
yeah,
I was in the lounge with this huge thing burning, and it was all full of smoke. And I just saw this dim figure moving through the smoke, and discovered it was the landlord. And
Wow.
I tried to explain to him that we were just it was just clearing the vibrations. He wasn't very impressed.
yeah.
But we got away with it all anyway. But it was extraordinary, yeah.
And then Gregoire came to stay, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yes,
And
it came from
he
there.
was
and
right. He was finishing the Advent
yeah, and going to mother's house to
every day.
every day to be, to talk to mother and revise things, and every day Maureen, he'd come back with the latest changes, and we didn't have word processors those days, so Maureen had to retype everything every
Yeah,
day
I
after
hired
meals.
a typewriter for a week, and it took months.
wow. So how long did it take? I mean, you say it was
About 3 months, I think.
3 months to
It
type the Advent.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because Shri Mataji kept revising it, you know, going through it
Every day for several hours.
every
I
every
remember
day.
I was
Yeah,
there all the time. It was
you
happening.
used to go down, didn't you, as
We used
well?
to go
Just
together, yeah, every day for several
every
hours, you
Any,
know.
any interesting conversations that you'd like to share from one of those visits, Jamal?
I think, one thing that I remember was Gregoire was away. I don't know whether he was gone to the toilets or he hadn't arrived or something. And she was correcting the text, and she was crossing a whole lot of lines. And then she said, I'm going to do this for his ego, because Gregoire was a very interesting character, He was quite argumentative. He was really defending his ideas, He really
You know,
went all out to defend his version of the Advent, but Shivadiji somehow didn't really agree to it because it had an intellectual
Hardly.
incline to it, and she thought, no, that's not the way, so she tried to really simplify it, make it a bit more accessible to the layman,
yeah.
But he had put the whole intellectual explanation of seeking at the beginning, and
Mm.
Shri Mataji said that was a big hammer that no one would get past. So she asked him to put that at the end.
Yeah, that
Because
must
it
have
was-
been difficult for him.
And he said that every day he'd go through it, and he told me every day he'd end up at Shri Mataji's feet saying, "You're right, mother." But he
Yeah.
was doing it was working out all
Yeah.
that, all that stuff
Yeah.
to make it a perfect version of what the seekers could see. So he did an amazing job.
So
But,
that's completely fantastic. So aside from the Advent, which in itself I think was very time-consuming and attention-consuming task that all of you worked, although Gregor was writing and Shrimati was checking and you were typing, what was the atmosphere in the ashram like, and what were
well,
the other things happening besides that?
I mean, we used to like work on each other and do oil our heads on a Saturday, and
It was
put
great.
soap.
We got up at 4 in the morning, said all the mantras together. It was wonderful, very
Yeah,
powerful, and we were building up to the first public program as well.
yeah,
when this was
yes,
going on,
yeah.
which was not that long afterwards, was it? It was
17th of
No,
October,
it was.
or something
Yeah,
like
it really wasn't that long. That's right. And then we started having people come back
yeah,
to the
and
ashram.
we
That was
lots of
mind
people,
blowing. Yeah,
lots of
new
people,
people.
all sorts
Yeah,
of dramas went on. Remember when we were all working in Harrods together,
yeah, yeah.
and somehow we got that guy in carpets involved.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't. Yes.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Poor man.
He was
Poor man.
staying.
It was too much for him.
He came and stayed in the ashram for a while and went
Yeah,
quite bonkers. And we
he
had
did.
all kinds of adventures with him.
Yes. But I mean, Shrimati came, and she would see the new people in the sitting room of that. It was quite a big sitting room.
The first floor sitting room, yeah.
Yeah, and we'd all just be all crammed in there, and she would work on them individually. And so we were kind of learning as well. And it for us, it was so exciting because, here were new people, here were people who were actually doing it instead of just us handful,
Did you
Um,
feel anything, because how children can be quite possessive about mother?
oh no, it
No,
was
no, I didn't
wonderful.
feel that.
No,
Which year
no,
was this?
this was 77.
So still October 77. Wow.
From October.
Grazyna, did you hear the bell? Grazyna, did you hear the bell? Where is she?
Um,
No, not
Yes.
yet.
I can hear it.
All
Okay.
right.
So we
Someone at the door.
continue while
Yeah, so I mean, no, not for me personally. I just felt because we've been desperate for people to have it, we'd told all our friends and they'd said, "Oh, fantastic," and then gone off. You just couldn't believe that nobody could see what we'd found.
yeah.
And then for Caxton Hall to have people, a whole hall full of people, and then follow-ups for people coming to the ashram. And listening to Mother and her working on them. And there were a lot of sessions like that, weren't there, Djamel?
Yeah, I mean, Shri Mataji worked tirelessly on on us and so many people who used to come, and she was such,
Absolutely.
she used to be with a candle almost all the time, sometimes also burning lemons and working with lemons on people, and it was amazing. We went really deep down into the crux of the problems, and she would go and find the source of the problem. And, sometimes you can't imagine what the source of problems were, like she would say, okay, you have this problem. And then she would take someone's hand and say, what is this ring you have on your hand? She would find that the ring is completely possessed and it's got a boot in it. And then she would take it out, or a necklace, or she would say, okay, what kind of experiences do you have in the past? What about your father, your mother? She would actually investigate until she finds where the problem is from. But she knows, of course, but she sort of works it out with the person.
It was also, it wasn't just on a everyday level. I mean, all this should be exorcising things from people, and you could almost feel them and be aware of them being, Mother pulling them out of people. And it was really quite extraordinary. I suppose everything was extraordinary, but it wasn't like you know, Miss Marple investigating jewelry. It was like the goddess investigating
Yeah.
every dimension of that these people had been through.
Yeah.
Times of it
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that, we would also go back to then Mother got Ashley Gardens, and we would go there after at Caxton Hall every Monday, go back to her house.
Which
Yeah.
is where she would you'd have nice dinners with her, and sometimes she would cook for you all.
Not necessarily there. She cooked in her screen, but at Ashley Gardens not so much.
But there was always a couple of servants who
Yes.
did some of the cooking, and Mother would just do things if she particularly wanted to.
Yeah.
Not us though.
No, and this is you're still at
Park Road.
Park Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was missing for some of the end of it because that's when I got thrown out of the collective for being caught up. When I
You
got
weren't clearing out enough and not being.
No, I mentioned it in that other video where I caught flu, really bad flu twice in succession. One, as soon as I started getting better from the first lot, I got it from the second lot, and I was absolutely in a dreadful state. Anyway, we talked about that before. So I moved out, and I got a bed sit round the corner, and Maureen used to sneak out and see me sometimes.
Yeah.
Eventually, I got called back into action when we got to the next ashram, which was Dollars Hill.
Yeah.
There weren't enough people to pay the rent, I think, partly, but also they were a strange bunch of people who ended up there. I think when I moved there, everyone was in India.
So when was
did you go
Dollars
to?
Hill ashram, and then how many more? Because the first ashram had just a handful of you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we had one or two other people kind of around after the Caxton Hall.
Yes.
But
Those Regis and Chaya were there at Dollars Hill at one
yeah,
point.
all sorts of people were. Yeah, we moved into Dollars Hill, and there were all sorts of people there, Bart and
So this would be 1978 sometime?
I guess it's
Yes, it must have been because
yeah.
I went there. I was only there for a term of college, and I went there, and that was 1980 though. It was coming up to the time Maureen and I got married, so I think
We must
I
have
would
had
have been
it
there
for
from about Easter 1980, but it was
maybe
established well before that.
we must have had it a couple of years then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
well, I know that Mark and I, we went to a wedding at Dollars Hill
Yes.
the night before our first year exam, so that would have been like June 1979. And Shri Mataji organised a wedding at Dollars Hill Ashram.
Yeah, she just produces couples from somewhere who wanted to get married, and they're Indian.
They were not yogis?
No.
No.
Wow.
And so we had a wedding out the back in the garden.
Yeah.
We all attended, and Shri
Amazing.
Mataji attended. And it's like everything Mother did. It was all illustrative of,
Yes.
and you just knew you were learning something, and there was something going on.
Well, that was to follow after some time for you all, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then that night after the wedding, I think it must have been about 1 a.m, Shri Mataji was going back to Victoria to Ashley Gardens in her car, and she gave Mark and I a lift down to Ashley Gardens. And as we were saying goodbye to her, it must have been about 2 a.m. by then.
Oh yeah.
We happened to mention to her that we got our first year exams the next day, and she said, "And you still came, as if you wouldn't, you know."
We were so pleased that we'd bothered to come along.
Wow.
as if you wouldn't, like anyway. So yeah, so that date I remember very well. So that was and it was established obviously, but it was still sort of early days for it. So that sort of June.
We did a lot there, didn't we?
We did the Advent.
Yeah,
the signing of the Advent for our
the
copies.
inauguration at India House.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all got, Mother gave each one of us a copy and wrote something in it before she gave it to us. It took me years before I got it translated.
Yeah.
There are some miracle photos from Dolly's Hill with Shri Mataji sitting and signing the Advent. I think Shushmita has got them.
Yes, I'm trying to get them up for you.
Yeah. I mean, at one of the times at Dollis Hill, I can remember Shri Mataji sat for 8 hours without moving. And we were able to actually get up and go to the loo or get a drink or whatever, but she sat there the whole time.
So this is Sahasrara Puja in Dollis Hill in 1980.
Oh, this person down there is myself.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
In
No,
the
in red on
It's Maureen,
right on the
Chaya,
right
it's Terry
corner.
on the right,
Yeah.
Gavin.
It was my first ever puja in Sahaja Yoga. I think I was 2 weeks in Sahaja Yoga when I went to the ashram. Somehow I got the address of the ashram, and
Well, we talked about that before in the other video,
yes,
didn't we?
yes.
So this is the Shri Mataji Advent book release, Dollis Hill. This is a year earlier, 1979. Thank you, Grazyna, for sorting out the photos, though. It's not coming in the chronological order. Don't know why, but this is the Sahasrara Puja.
I don't know where that is.
Wow, okay.
Dolly's Hill.
It looks like, because Mother would sit on a chair in the bay window, wouldn't she?
Yeah, I don't know that we had a chair like that though. I don't know what. Can't remember.
It was just, from my memory, it was just a big sort of wing back armchair. It wasn't a throne. It wasn't something we got specifically.
Oh,
It was
no.
it was like a comfortable, one of a three-piece suite type of thing that we decorated with Mother's saris and things. But
Do you
But Dollis Hill went on for a long time.
Any
and a lot
stories
happened.
that you'd like to share of Dollis Hill Ashram? Because it's
I don't know. Yeah, Sushmita, I don't know if Maureen or Pat remembers this puja, which was probably a Sahasrara puja. You remember that Sahasrara puja in Dollis Hill? I was not in London then. I had gone back to Algeria for a few months. And when I came, and I used to come to London every month because I was working with an airline. And I remember one day I took, what happened was I had a plane from Algiers to London, and I arrived late, and somehow, when I went to the check-in, they said, okay, no, you can't go, that's it, we've actually closed the flight. And then what happened was I met a friend of mine from secondary school, and he was a pilot with Algerian Airlines. And then he went to the check-in desk. He said, come on, guys, we work with you. You should let him go. Let him get on the plane, And they called the pilot, and the pilot said, yes, he can come in. So I managed to, get into the plane and sit. And when I arrived, the pilot said, yes, we've been delayed because the French army were doing exercises over the Mediterranean. So fortunately, because of that delay, and I was going to this puja in Dollis Hill. And when I arrived in Dollis Hill, I arrived late. And when I arrived, then they started the arti, and I did the arti with them. And Shri Mataji, of course, was there. I think it was a Sahasrara puja, but I'm not entirely sure. And then at the end of the arti, I think one of the yoginis or something came to me and said, Shri Mataji said, don't start the arti yet. Djamel is coming.
Wow.
And she knew I was on the way, and she stayed the arti. And I thought that was so amazingly thoughtful of Shri Mataji, just to, she knew that, somehow a yogi was coming, and she had to delay the start of the arti.
And there would be about 15, 20 of you by this time or more?
The room was pretty full, actually.
Yeah,
Lots more
something
than
like
that,
that.
yeah. I think
More than
more,
that.
Yeah, more. Because that's just the front you're seeing there.
Because it was a through lounge. It's one of these sort of 1930s built semi, and the the wall had been knocked through, and there were sort of bifold double doors between the front lounge and the back lounge, so it was all effectively one room. So yeah, we often had like 30 or more people in there,
You know, you were
and packed, absolutely
Yeah.
packed.
Yeah.
That's Christine.
Is this Dolittle as well?
No, that's an Irish lady who came from.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Not Christine.
No,
Oh, right.
This is 1978 in Dollis Hill Ashram.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably it's got my speakers in it.
Wow.
I can't remember what you made that sign for. Can you, Maureen? Remember, Maureen?
The
That
sign,
big one?
yeah, it looks like a poster, doesn't
Poster,
it?
yeah.
It was a special one. We did it for something.
Yeah, we
I
did.
can't remember why.
It's a puja photo of Shri Mataji, probably, isn't
It
it?
is, yeah. And we wouldn't normally use that for a poster, so I'm not sure. Well,
We've done
unless
it
we,
something.
yeah, we did.
I mean, the other thing that we had in Dodders Hill was all the TM people coming. So that was
Yeah.
a huge upheaval because they were
Yeah,
so
that was-
caught up. And
That
Mother
was
was
1979,
exorcising
that was
them.
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that really exercised.
Well,
Mother came to Dollis Hill quite a lot, didn't she? She'd sort
Yeah.
of turn up on spec and just sit and talk to us.
Oh, all the time. I remember once we ended up having one room for Mother at the front upstairs with a bed in the middle, and we often used to sleep
bed
on
in the
the
middle.
floor around it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember I went to sleep there one. There was no one else. Everyone had gone to a meeting, to a program with Mother. I went to sleep on the floor in my sleeping bag, and about 3 a.m, suddenly all these noises. The door flew open. The light was turned on, and Shri Mataji walked in with thousands of ladies, and I had to, I had to stand up and hop out of the room in my sleeping bag quickly.
Wow. Some lovely photos of Shri Mataji in Dollis Hill Ashram, and it's still 1978 from what.
I'm still not sure where that one is because I can't see what that furniture is.
Well, that looks like piano to me.
It does,
And
yeah.
And that makes me feel it's somebody's house more than anywhere.
Could
but-
be, yeah.
This is back again in Dollis Hill.
That
then.
could well be Dodders Hill, yeah.
That
Yeah.
looks like Dollis Hill.
Yeah.
But
Beautiful.
Mother would sit in that chair and have us, need to go like that, work on her. And
Ah.
she would ask one or two of us to press on her back. And she
Right.
would say, "Oh, just press harder, you won't hurt me." And she would be sitting there with 1 foot across her knee, very relaxed, eating chana and drinking tea or drinking water. And there would be 2 of us behind Mother with all our strength. And it really did deny the laws of physics, because we would have pushed the car, the car
Wow.
with that much force. And Mother was just talking, laughing, working on people and telling us things and eating chana, put all the books in the chana, and she wouldn't move. And it was at the time, it didn't really seem strange, because it
Nothing
was just
seems
Mother
strange.
asking us to do something, and we did it because
Nothing
Mother
seems
said, "Oh,
strange,
do
no
it."
matter how
No,
it's
it didn't. No, you're right. But it was. If I think about, I have to think about it, sort of put my brain into gear. I could push a car with one hand. I mean, not quick, but I was a lot skinnier then, but I was still quite strong. If I was to push someone at their back, I would push them off the chair, even if they were braced with 2 feet. But Mother sat with one leg across her knee, and just talking, eating chana, drinking tea, as sort of light-hearted as you ever saw her.
Amazing.
And there would be 2 of us pushing her back with all our might. No, we weren't pretending. With all our might, and she would just say, "Oh, you won't hurt me. Just push harder."
Yeah, she always would say push it. I know
Well, it's
when we
like
pressed
that.
her feet.
When you're rubbing her feet, you'd say, rub harder, rub harder.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
you'd be absolutely exhausted. And
absolutely.
But
Yeah,
what was it like? What was Shri Mataji's feet feel like? Because of course, for her, however much pressure you applied or force you applied, and it, of course, I mean, divine, so no laws of
it
physics,
was hard work.
chemistry, anything
It
work.
was really hard work, because she got something, a lotion called Pretty Feet.
Oh,
And it was just like a cream, like a foot cream rather than a hand cream. And we would rub this into Mother's feet, and it was I've not seen it for sale, but I think it might have been only for sale in the Indian shops. And it was
Ah.
a little sort of bottle like that, like Nivea or something like that. And it was called Pretty Feet. And she says, "Oh, just rub this." And it was a real chore. And then some mother would say, "Oh, yes, thank you. Put your head on my feet." And you put your head on mother's feet, and like your head was going to explode. I've never felt such pressure in anywhere. Just, but because mother was working out, we weren't. Mother said, "Work on me." Yeah, we weren't working on mother. Obviously,
We were being worked
we were
on.
being worked on.
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately,
yeah, it was astonishing, really.
Mother's feet felt both incredibly strong and incredibly soft at
Yeah.
the same time.
but
Yeah.
I must say I was not very good at it. Shri Mataji asked me to massage, to rub her feet, and I was sweating.
Oh yeah, all the
I'm
time.
Bring everything out.
My
It
head,
was hard work.
and Shri Mataji looked at me and she said, "This is no good." And she asked one of these big men to take her feet and massage them, because I don't think I was doing a good job there. So yeah.
I actually got a memory as well of that, because I remember being at Brompton Square, and Shri Mataji often used to ask us to rub her feet. And on one occasion, she said, "I want you to pull my toes." And I thought, really? And she said, "Yes, pull my toes. They're just like taps. And whichever toe you're pulling, you're going to get the vibrations into your chakra from that particular toe." And I remember I was pulling, I think it was the right heart or the left heart, one of the two. And I was pulling. She said, "No, harder, harder, harder." And you think, "No, I can't go any harder." But, Mother said it was completely beyond, and you just being flooded with vibrations. And that was a lovely experience I had with her, from actually rubbing her feet. And I also remember after some public programs, Mother's chakras will be whirling around so much after giving her vibrations to the whole hall, that she'd get Warren to kind of work on her. And I remember him sort of putting his hands on her back, and his head was getting redder and redder. All the vibrations coming into him. And it was helping Mother, I think, because sometimes we didn't suck enough. We didn't take the vibrations enough out. And so, we had to sort of literally put hands on them to help Mother, take these vibrations.
Release these,
Good thing.
Amazing. So that's Dollis Hill, and it kind of gets everybody firmly into Sahaja Yoga. The family grows, and you there for about 2.5 years. Is that right?
Something like that.
And then
Yeah,
what's next? What happens next?
Cheltenham Road. Well, the story that we told before, basically, of getting the keys. So we know the date of that because it was the 25th of July, 1980, was when we got the keys and we went in there. And I mean, when did you move in, Gail, Graham?
Well, I've got a timeline here, and it looks like I moved in sometime at the late end of July, because I was going to Caxton Hall programs, and I'd also got my realization in Hampstead at the Friends Meeting House. And I think the first meeting that Hester arranged in Hampstead at the Friends Meeting House.
It's 1980, Graham.
Yes, that's what I think, June 1980.
So one of the first ones.
One of the first.
And it was amazing, because I'd met Hester before, and she just sort of said, "Oh, hi, come along to this meeting." And so I did. And I remember Mother turning up wearing this beautiful white sari, and she looked absolutely queenly as she sort of flowed into the room. And then we had the normal realization program. And I remember being worked on by some yogis after that, and Mother sort of coming towards me. And I was, sweating, and I was thinking, I was feeling so hot. And this lady behind me was raising my right side and pushing my left down. And Mother sort of came closer, and her eyes was very close. And she said, no, he's left-sided, raise his left side, raise his left side. And I had a fantastic experience. And all I can remember is leaving the hall, and it looked like a battlefield with people and bodies strewn all over the floor that you were sort of stepping over. But, you know, literally, Mother would come out and work on people, which is something you were saying, Maureen, isn't it? That,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's very, very proactive, and not just sitting on the stage and you know, not interacting, but she really did work very hard on all of us, actually. And yeah,
with the new people, it was like a battlefield, and we used to have to stagger back to the ashram afterwards and try and put soak and clear ourselves out and recover from it each time. But it was great, you know, we loved it.
So
And
how
so-
did Cheltenham Road come about then? Tell us the transition from Dollis Hill to Cheltenham Road, please.
well, I suppose Mother asked Linda and Peter to buy it, isn't it? That was
well,
the
no,
way-
Linda.
Just Linda.
Linda
Just
bought
Linda,
it.
Linda.
Linda, and she got it. And that was another miracle. I think she's probably told that story. I don't know it in detail,
Please
but
share
how
it in brief if you want.
well, I don't really have the story, but I do know that it was a miracle how she got the money somehow.
She bought it with £1 or 10,
Yes, there was something crazy, wasn't it, Grazyna?
something like that. Yes.
Well, she had to sell across Craig to
Yes.
get the money,
okay.
but
That's the
that
castle
had
in
to
Scotland.
be organised.
Yes.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
Dollis Hill continued along at the same time for some time because Dollis Hill was rented and Linda bought the house. So
Yeah.
you know,
It wasn't just given up straight away.
I can just tell you a little bit about the house because I moved there just after Linda bought it. So the house was a ruin.
It'd been hit by a bomb, hadn't it?
It was a complete ruin.
In the wall.
What you see as a meditation room now, it hardly existed. Everything had to be changed and rebuilt. And the kitchen was upstairs. It was all very different layout. And I don't really remember where we meditated because there was nowhere very much to meditate, but I think we managed to find a place to meditate. But the thing is, everything was a little bit of a chaos because people living there, I was not working. And so I could look after the place with Chaya, but people who lived there, they were working. So I find myself starting 5 o'clock in the morning and finishing 11 at night. I don't know, just somehow everything was very difficult. Whatever we started to do, everything was sort of difficult and falling apart. Whatever.
Well, I can remember when there were 16 of us living there at one point, and there's only one bathroom, and all I can remember is that all night long, an alarm clock would go off every hour for somebody to go off and have their bath. It was the only way we could do it.
So it was very difficult, and people would say that this was sorting out the universe, or maybe the heart of the universe, which was in a terrible state.
Well, I mean, it was really like a building site, I remember. And I know that Pat used to go off with Peter, didn't you, in what you call the van was the Yellow Peril. And because it was so dangerous to be in, but he somehow managed to get all these wonderful doors with sort of
from Lloyd's Bank.
Wasn't
it Lloyd's Bank they came from?
And he came back with them, and then we actually polished them all up and used electric planes on them and made them all fit, and they worked wonderfully, I must say, in that big meditation room.
But first we had to build it. We had to build the wall.
Yes.
And everything. And I remember digging the foundations for the walls with Nick Kurzweil. I remember doing that. And then we got a bricklayer in to actually do the bricks, basically, and then the door thing. But when Grazyna and I got married there was still no roof.
Sort of plastic.
Not really a floor either, I don't think.
No, it was December, the 5th of December, and there was in the morning there was no roof at all. We're supposed to get married. So
from 25th of July 1980 till the 5th December 1980, the Cheltenham Road Ashram was still a site, a building site. And
Well,
there were
it
these
wasn't a
auspicious
building
events.
site. There
No.
were people living in it. It's just the building was
Going
in a
on
terrible state.
Yes,
It was
yeah.
it
It was
needed
being
renovating.
renovated. It was being
Yeah.
renovated.
Yeah,
But building went on there for a long time,
Oh,
you
Yeah.
for
know,
years. Yeah,
years, including the building of the top floor.
yeah.
But to begin with, it was, you know, just a lot of people living somehow all together. I don't think any of us had lived quite like that. So many people crammed into one house.
That's a
So-
good thing, actually. I remember the kitchen, you mentioned being upstairs, Grazyna. I remember going up there, having breakfast there, and they had that old sort of cooker
Yes,
with a grill above. And every day, I think the toast would catch on fire.
Yeah.
The flames would be going up through the top of the grill, you know, and they'd come out black, you know.
That's why we had to be there all the time, because the cooking facilities were really bad. The washing up facilities were bad.
I think Tony used to say, "Oh, it's really good for you. Just scrape some of this off, you know. It's going to be all right, you know."
Well, it's
Carbon.
carbon.
It was a
Yes.
very wonderful, chaotic, extraordinary, wonderful experience, actually.
And would
being there, yeah.
amazing. It's something completely out of the world. And then would Shri Mataji come and visit you guys?
Yes, she used to come. We used to have Monday evening programs at Caxton Hall, and then Fridays she used to come to the ashram, and so loads of people would arrive as well as people living there. And so Mother would come, and then we'd have a lovely evening with her, and we'd make a meal for her, and then she'd give a talk, and then work on everyone there.
But
So everyone went to her.
which year was this, Graham? Which year was this?
I think it was.
It'd have to be when the meditation room was built.
Yes, I would
wouldn't
think
it? So
this is-
that's a bit later, I think. 'cause I
Yes.
think he was
Meditation
still-
was not ready. I don't know if, Pat, you remember that Shri Mataji before December, Shri Mataji asked everybody to stay up all night to concrete the floor.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time staying up all night, if you remember. Remember, we had at one stage, Mother said we shouldn't eat for one day, and we shouldn't.
Yeah, we shouldn't
one
sleep.
night a week, we should stay up all night.
Yeah, I
Well,
can remember doing that where we were living. We had to stay. All the yogis came round our house. Yeah, similar.
So we were often up at night doing extraordinary things.
Mhm.
Djamel, wasn't that you who fell asleep at work in front of your boss?
Yes. Because I lived there from 1984, January 84 to about May 87. So I spent about 3.5 years. And I remember we started actually getting up at 5 o'clock for meditation. And of course we had the work to do. We had a lot of work to do because we also were doing the cassettes, you know. And we were basically the only cassette producing center in the whole world, you know. At the time, we used to produce all the masters for every other center internationally. And I remember that the first 2 years, I think we used to get up at 5 o'clock. I think, Graham, you were there as well. And we used to do sort of meditation, puja, arti, you know, the whole lot. And then I used to actually sleep in the afternoon. I would just sleep in front of my computer for about half an hour, you know. So,
It was a real workout getting up at 5, trying to get a shower as well beforehand when there's loads of other people queuing, you know, to get in there. And then we were very dedicated about doing the pujas first thing, and then after and everything, including the arti, of course. And then we'd have breakfast, and then off we'd go to work. And I was working with Gavin at the time, in North Gower Street.
you know that what's her name? Elizabeth Hancock lived with us, you know, from Australia. She stayed with us for probably a year or something. And I remember that, you know, we used to get up at 5. And one day Shri Mataji called the ashram and she said, from now on, you have to get up at 4. So Elizabeth had, because Ray used to be the one to wake us up. I think from then on, Elizabeth took it over to wake us up at 4, you know. And it's true that you sort of get up and you knock your head around a bit, you know. to
And
make
they
sure-
used to walk around with a bell. You could hear this bell ringing. Someone would be ringing this bell, and you know you could not ignore it. It was impossible, you know. But that absolutely got everybody up. I remember that very well.
Did have some yoga.
Also, the other thing was, Mother decided at one point that we should stop drinking tea, and this was terrible for English people, you know, because we used to drink so much.
Yeah,
I think you can only have like 2 or 3 cups a day at the most.
What do you mean? That in the end, I think Mother said, well, you could drink tea, but no more than 2 or 1 cup.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we used to drink 2 or 3 cups an hour. I mean, we had nothing else to do because
I
we'd
know.
given so many things up. And we used to have this tea. I remember in Dodders Hill too, with what's his name, chai. You know, all those flavors.
Cardamoms and
Yeah,
cinnamon and
we used to have this really
cloves.
strong. It
Yeah.
got stronger and stronger and stronger. So when someone came who wasn't used to it, they'd literally collapse after having a sip.
Yeah.
Well, Mother said that the way to give up tea was that if you stop having milk in it, stop having sugar in it, half of you will give up. Stop having milk, the other half will give up.
Mm.
I know you can have lemon in Poland anyway, but I
But
just
then, Gail, you were there with children, so that was the
Yeah,
next
Yeah.
I
stage,
mean,
wasn't it?
Yeah, because I had William then, like the first child, and he was a baby, and I mean, it was quite challenging, I have to say.
That's another side of ashrams, isn't it? Trying to live
Yeah.
in an ashram.
Which year is this then,
And he
Gail?
was born in '82,
In
so
May. Yeah.
yeah.
Moved on a
so
couple
it's
of years. Was
1982.
Uncle Douglas at Cheltenham Road as well, or
No.
was he
He always had his
nearby?
own place, Dougie.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 I think
Can I
lived in
just
Kent
say
Tower.
one little story about 1980 before we go to the next year? Shri Mataji, Linda was pregnant with Dattatreya, her son, in Cheltenham Road. She was pregnant, and Shri Mataji rang the ashram, and she said, "Linda, it is time. Linda, it is time." So Shri Mataji asked to call the ambulance. No, not call the ambulance. I don't know how we got to the hospital. I think yes, she called the ambulance or we got a taxi. I don't remember at the time, but we were on the way to the hospital where she was. We couldn't even reach Royal Free. She had to stop at University College. It was halfway because she was delivering the baby. So actually, Mother knew exactly that she was going to deliver, and she was not aware of it really at the time. So it was just completely the right time that we and her husband couldn't be at the birth of the baby because he went to the wrong hospital. He went to the hospital where the baby was going to be delivered. So I was actually present at delivery of the baby, which I mean it was a fantastic experience, I must say.
Grazyna, which year was this?
This was I think it was August
1980.
1980.
Yeah.
So this photo, I mean here again.
That's Pat at
Yeah,
his
this is the
wedding.
meditation hall in Cheltenham Road, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
It's our marriage in Cheltenham Road.
yes. So beautiful here.
That's
That's
Mother.
putting your turban on, Pat.
Yes, Mother putting my turban on because I was hopeless. I didn't have a clue. And that's me looking terrified.
Grazyna looking beautiful.
Yes, gorgeous couple.
That's Sastra Day, 1981, because that was my
Wow.
first puja with Mother.
Beautiful.
It's when I got my realization Mother was in India and Australia, and that's the first puja that I did in person with Mother. I will never forget that picture.
No, gosh, very nice.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's the same puja.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's a Guru puja, I think. Yeah, and that's outside. Those are the doors.
That's a happen in the
Doors.
garden, isn't it?
Doors, the famous doors.
Yeah.
You can see the doors from Cheltenham Road.
Of course,
Oh.
we had the 16 marriages, of course, in the garden.
Yes.
Was
Yeah.
that 1980?
That was
No,
81.
That was like 81 or 82. I
It
think
was
it might, I
81.
think
And
it
we
might
were
have been
just
82.
approaching a Krishna puja. So
I don't think so, Maureen.
16.
'Cause the six,
Well, we were married in 81 July, you see. So I don't think they happened that quickly.
No, you were married in 1980.
1980, beg your pardon. So
I
yes,
know
it could
we
have
were
been
married
81.
in 81
I beg your
because I
pardon.
had
Sorry.
William in
Yeah,
82. And
yes, yes, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. All the proprietors
Yes,
were
81.
there, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So yes, there were
it's a wonderful
16
thing,
couples
16
crammed into the
marriages.
garden.
16 marriages. And I remember telling actually the whole thing about Mother. You know, we were actually doing programs all over the UK, helping people actually have public programs. So the yogis from Chiltern Road would go out, and on one occasion we went to Sheffield, where Gail was actually doing a public program.
That's where I lived.
And
That's where I got my realisation.
and that's where we met for the first time.
Mm.
And then then we'd have a puja on the following day, on the Sunday, and come back and then go off somewhere else. And a few weeks later, I think we were traveling on a train with Mother, and she said to Pamela, "Oh, who's that lady who lives up in Sheffield, you know?" And I think Pamela said, "Oh, her name's Gail." And then Mother turned round to me and she said, "Oh, Graham, I think you should marry Gail," you know. Because I hadn't thought about marriage at all. And so then I said, "Yes, Mother, okay, as you do," you know. And then I thought, "Oh, perhaps you'll forget about it," you know. She probably, you know. But eventually, you know, a week later, "Have you phoned her yet?" And then, you know, "No, sorry, Mother." She said, "Phone her, phone her." So eventually I did. And, you know, we had a sort of conversation, and we were saying that Mother thinks it's a good idea if we should get married. You know, what do you think about that? And she said, "Oh, yes, that's very nice and very good." So we arranged to meet. And that was history. You know, she came down. I remember telling Gavin, because I was saying, "Look, Gavin, we're engaged. We're going to get married." He said, "Fantastic. Krishna Puja, 16 couples. Couldn't have been better." You know, it was just a lovely, lovely thing. And
They did the whole
an Indian pujari, didn't we?
yeah, but beforehand you had the whole covering you all in the
Haldi.
in the
Turmeric.
haldi ceremony in the garden as well.
I mean, Mother took me down to Southall to buy all the jewellery for Gail. You know, she was just so meticulous.
Did you have haldi in your weddings?
No.
No, so
Not
that
enough.
would have been
No,
the first
we
time.
didn't. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the
I do
first.
remember we were all in the garden and there was a big vat. I think it might have been a tin
Might have
bath
been
or
a bath,
something.
I think, yeah.
Of haldi. I mean, masses of it. And Mother was sitting in a chair in the garden, and we were all being, you know, sort of decorated with the haldi. And I remember Mother was laughing and laughing, and she was enjoying this. And there was so much haldi put on us. I mean, literally.
Yeah, it was like a mud makeup.
It was like
you know.
mud mask.
Mud mask.
I do remember that. So that must have been the first sort of haldi in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, where did you wash? Because there was only one bathroom.
We all kind of shared the bath, the ladies anyway. We sort of went in twos or threes and kind of helped each other because, I mean, we were caked, you know.
Yeah, I remember Hillary had a big thing on her nose that had sort of stuck, you know, really accentuated her nose like a big beak. But but the lovely thing with the pujari, an Indian pujari came, and you know, who probably does loads and loads and loads of marriages, so he knows it off by heart. And every time he'd start saying something, Mother said, "No, no, 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 no," and she'd correct him, you know. And then yes, Shri Mataji, and then he'd go on, and then no, 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 and it was just so comic actually that just everybody enjoyed it so much, and had that lovely little fire, didn't we, in the back? Yeah. Which all the couples walked around.
Just one fire.
Just the one fire, yes, for everyone. And a lovely grandma wearing a white suit, I remember, got completely covered with the haldi, you know. So that was an extraordinary moment and very, very funny, you know. But yeah, beautiful ceremony. And then we all went after that to move to Brahman Gardens, I think. Married couples, wasn't it?
Definitely.
But That's
Where
jumping.
was Djamel and Gilmet? Where were you married?
No, it was a bit different, you know, it was a different story altogether. We were
But is
actually
it around the same time?
no, we got married. We were married by Shri Mataji in Terminal 2, you know, of Heathrow Airport.
Oh,
Because we were both very shy, and we didn't think about going to India and actually having a full-fledged marriage, you know, like all the others. And what Shri Mataji did, you know, when she matched us, she invited us to go with her to the airport because she was about to go to Spain. I remember she was going on a trip to Spain and Portugal. And then when we got to, we had already, of course, did the what you call the matching, because you know she gave us some time to think about it, and after about a week, in fact, she gave me the time, you know, but she gave no time to Gilmet at all. In fact, she just invited her to Brompton Square and said, "What do you think of Djamel?" She said she laughed, Gilmet, because she did have some design. She saw me at some point. She said, "Yeah, I couldn't be so bad," and all that. And then, you know, when she took us both to the airport in her car. When we got there, she took out some jewelry from her bag, and she said, "Oh, it's funny, yeah, I've got these." She had a kind of Baroque type style ring, and she had some earrings, coral earrings, and she gave them to Gilmet there and then. And she gave me some couplings, you know, which were also with a coral stone on it. And she said, "That was it, you know, you just now have to go and make it official." You know, that was.
which year is this then?
That was
Is that 82?
the end of May, around the 28th, something like that, 28th of May, 1982.
Yeah.
I was living in Bramham Gardens there, you know. That's why, you know, you brought up
That's jumping ahead, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry. I
That's
didn't know
jumping
this
ahead.
sequence there. So yeah, please carry on, Graham.
Because after Chelsea Road went on for years with all kinds of people living there, in various states. Sometimes it was okay, sometimes it was a building site, but that went on for years. And the next stage, I think, was that we got this new yogi who ran a housing association, who was
yeah.
and he said we could form a housing association ourselves and be allocated properties to look after for periods of time without paying rent.
Wow.
So we went for it, of course, and then we started getting all kinds of properties all over the place.
What happened to
Nightingale Lane.
Feltham Road then?
Warwick
Well,
Road.
that was
Carried on.
That was later.
It
yeah.
started. We had one actually near Judd Street, near where we first
met
met Shri
Mother.
Mataji. And we did a lot of planning there. I remember me and Douglas. There was another one in Bayham Street, near Camden Tube Station, and there was another one also on the other side of Camden High Street. Another house we had. I can't remember how we got so many people to fill them up. And then we had that one in Warwick Road. It was a huge house.
Yes.
And then across there, from there, Bramham Gardens, which was a
Hotel,
huge hotel, wasn't it?
And Mother actually stayed there, didn't she?
Earl's Court, wasn't
With
it?
CP, yeah.
And of course, when all the couples moved to Bramham Gardens, Shri Mataji and Sir CP were also there, living in the basement.
Yeah, they moved there. Yeah,
with Gajendra, you know, their servant, and you know, and then you know, periodically Mother would arise and come up into the main front room, and that's where we had these lovely meditations with her, which were
was the year
videoed.
then? Which year? What
This would
time?
be 81.
82.
Yeah.
82? No,
Oh, maybe
81.
81.
It's
Yeah,
81.
81. You're right.
Before William was born.
Yeah.
that was also where she declared the first leader who was going to be in charge of us, because before that, you remember we used to have these meetings and everyone had to have a say, and you'd have like 30 people in a room and it'd take hours and hours for each person to stand up and waffle for hours.
And I had to take all the minutes. Yes, I know. Yeah.
It was crazy, but
we did have some meetings with Mother as well.
Oh yeah,
we?
of
Yes, I
course.
mean, there's a really nice video of Mother actually teaching us about meditation, actually, in that front room, I think in 1981.
Yeah, I think we didn't we show that last time we did
Yeah,
Golden
maybe we
Memories?
did that.
I think
Yeah,
But you can look it up
Sure.
on Router and it's there, you know.
Guillemette, hello.
Yeah.
You're running away.
Give it.
But Warwick Avenue, let me just say a quick word. Some of us actually moved to Warwick Avenue, and I remember it was like a very old Victorian house. And sometimes, you know, there would be little bits of friction sometimes, you know, with people living there. But I remember Chaya and Regis, lovely, lovely couple, you know,
yes.
there. And Mother came over. I remember her sitting in the ground floor and she was looking up, you know, and she's saying, oh, what sort of a house is this? And it's Victorian. Oh, yes. And you could see she was absolutely working on the whole building and just sort of clearing it out, you know.
Was it Warwick Road?
Huh?
Yes, Warwick Road.
Warwick Road, Warwick Avenue.
You lived there? No, but did you live there?
We lived there when we were married. The second place we lived in,
Yes.
Warwick Road, and it wasn't exactly building work there, but it's pretty chaotic. I remember the couple in the room next door. They got the wiring mixed up, so when we wanted to put our light out in our room, we'd have to bang on the door on the wall and ask the people next door to turn it off for us, and vice versa.
What about the police thinking we were squatted?
That was right at the beginning. Yeah, they burst in because someone thought it would be a good idea. We didn't have electricity on. Someone thought we'd put 3 candles in the window for the 3 channels to clear them out, and the police thought it was squatters and burst in, and they investigated the altar and said that picked up the kumkum jar, saying this looks suspicious. Opened it and it exploded all over him. Every place, and we took so much rubbish out of there. I remember we all chucked it out the back windows and took it to the dump because it was full of stuff. But every place, and then Mother had furniture stored there as well at one point. She had it even in Finchley. She had furniture stored. In between moving, she was always moving somewhere to somewhere else, and in the meantime vibrating the ashrams with all her furniture. But we had all these places on the go, all these ashrams, and then the next one must have been Nightingale Lane, I suppose, and that was massive, wasn't it?
Very quickly, sorry, I've just got some photos from Finchley Ashram. Is that right?
Yeah,
That's Finchley. Yes, that's Finchley. Yeah.
Yeah, this was Easter because we had Tony's Easter candle burning.
We
all the
did,
time.
yes, making the ceiling black.
And the floor covered in wax.
Oh, they are huge candles. And
That's
this is
probably the Pandit, the Pujari that you're talking about.
Looks a bit like Satpal, actually.
But is he not? I would have thought.
It was Satpal.
It is Satpal, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah,
He was the
still
first.
he came all the way from Hurst Green to Finchley to I mean he was appeared, I mean.
Yeah, he appeared.
At our pujas.
He lived in
And-
Hull, if I remember when.
Yeah, please continue. Sorry.
But I don't know if we've got any pictures of the other places.
Well, I've got some of Nightingale Lane, actually, if that's...
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
please.
Yeah, so as you probably know, we did move into Nightingale Lane, which was, I believe, a nursing home at one time. So it was pretty extensive, had a huge garden at the back, beautiful actually, and lovely, you know, lots of amenities, you know, big kitchen to cook in, lots of things like that. So we actually did have a Guru Puja there, I believe it was in 1982. And so
the garden, yeah.
Pictures, which I can kind of show you if I show you. That's one of my...
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it, yeah.
And just a few of those, if I may.
Let me have
Yeah, another one.
There's a video of that puja, isn't there, which shows
There is,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Funny enough, I was watching it last night, actually.
Very nice.
No.
You want to show?
Yes, actually, what I wanted to show you was quite unusually, you know, we had people in the, which I was taking some pictures. This is Anupama, I think,
Yeah.
washing mother's feet. And yeah.
Marcus.
And here she is again. Another one, which is very nice. But here's an interesting one I think you'll like, because it actually shows the yogis.
Can you see?
Yes.
Can you see them?
Yeah.
Is that clear enough for you? Can you see?
Yeah. Mark Callahan.
I think there's Billy
Nice,
there.
Mark Callahan.
There's Ian in the front there.
I'm seeing Lewis.
Yeah, and Bala.
Bala. And then there's, I think, Bernard at the back in that black and red.
All right.
Bernard Rackham.
And I think Laurent is sitting there as well.
And then there's
Yeah.
Jason
Yeah.
on the back row.
Not what you
Laurent
wanted.
next to him.
Yeah.
And,
Terry. That's
Bala,
Terry in the back, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was.
I had a long chat with Ian Lewis the other day.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yes, he's had you know, he's been out of Sahaja Yoga all these years with another career and a family, and he had a heart problem. He was quite seriously ill, and during it he had these flood of experiences of Kundalini and Shri Mataji flooding him with love, and it's completely overwhelmed him. He keeps sending me messages every 5 minutes. The only problem is how to explain it to his wife and kids.
Okay,
You don't know anything about it. His career as a yogi.
Can I just show you a few more? There's another one.
Yeah.
If you can see those.
Yeah.
Kate Keating in pink.
It's Malcolm over there, I think.
Malcolm in the front row. That's
Yeah,
right.
Martin was there.
So that was how big the garden was. It seemed to be
Yeah.
huge. actually.
Massive.
Yeah.
Would Gilbert be there in those photos, you reckon?
Say it again.
Kitchen, actually. She was in the kitchen doing, I think she was cooking for everyone that day, you know, so she doesn't appear much in the photos.
Yeah, this is nice actually with the two.
I had to go to
Beautiful.
France because of the wedding and all that. You know.
Yeah.
And then actually what was interesting too is that in early days, I don't know if it was true later, but Mother actually mixed the amrit with her hands, you know, it wasn't actually poured onto her feet. And this is, you know, showing how she was doing that. And that's pouring the amrit on her hands.
Beautiful.
And then after the lovely picture with Mother's sort of garlanded and her feet there. Wow. It brings back so many nice memories, actually.
Beautiful.
Aren't they nice? Yeah. Very good. And then, yeah, one with Mother's feet.
Seems to be a massive place, Nightingale.
It was huge,
It
yeah.
was
Yeah, it was
massive.
long corridors.
Care
I
home,
remember,
yeah.
really long corridors.
And lots of rooms and huge big
Lots of
rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then one with Mother's feet. It's lovely. And the final one was the
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
this one.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
Little
Amazing.
Clapham, you know. You know,
I do remember, I mean, when we were there, everybody was put on a liver diet. I remember that. And we had to have water on our cornflakes. I remember that. And I was allowed milk because I had a baby and I was feeding the baby. I used to think, thank goodness, I could have milk on my cornflakes.
Yeah, I remember that water. I didn't live there, but I was there quite often. I remember water on the cornflakes. Pretty grim.
So we had rotas for doing the washing up, and there were so many people there. It used to take about 2 hours, you know, to actually do all the washing up after a meal. It was pretty big stuff, actually. In those days. But yeah, lovely, really nice. So that's all I remember about Nightingale Lane.
Thanks for sharing those photos. Very, very nice insight into those times, basically.
It was sort of very intimate in a way, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
You're so used to now seeing Mother with thousands of people at large pujas, but this was just the sort of extended family,
Yes.
really, as it were.
Yeah, everyone knew each other generally,
Everyone knew
didn't
each other,
they?
that's right.
Not like
And
now.
people like us, we can only dream,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, but Mother was
because
building it up all the time.
Yeah.
There was another ashram at Surbiton, wasn't there, as well?
Oh yes, yeah. That was
Did
the
you
one
live-
where the fire. They had a fire, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah,
Did you live
one of
there,
the
Graham?
bedrooms.
I know there was a fire at
No.
Gail, you didn't.
There was a fire at
No.
Cheltenham Road. That
Oh, that was with the presents.
yes,
wrapping
Mother's
paper.
sari
Yeah.
caught on fire from one of those oil lamps.
Oh, 2 fires then.
Yes, and then everyone was freaking out, you know. And Mother said, "Don't panic, nothing's going to happen," you know. And it was just poof and all gone, completely controlled like that, you know.
But we did have the fire brigade out for an Ajwan session because there was
Yes.
so much smoke coming out of the windows. So the neighbours called the fire brigade. Do you remember? And
That's right.
they knocked on the door.
Yes, Mother wanted us to do Ashram to clear out the Vijudi. So we were all sitting under these long sheets, which everyone ran around the house to get together. And we all sat under this with this great smoking brazier of Ashram and, you know, eyes watering and everything. And there's so much smoke that someone had opened the kitchen window, which was out to the front road. And the smoke was pouring out. And someone called the fire brigade, who turned up, you know, knocked on the door. And we just opened the door and said, "Oh, no, sorry, it's just a little bit of incense. Thank you." Shut the door again. But there you are, Shri Mataji sitting with all of us, just collective like that. So wonderful, actually.
But I remember a Sahaja Yogi who worked in an office who lived there, and he was like, my suits are just smelling.
Yeah.
He was so embarrassed to go to work with his Ajwan smell because it does kind of smell.
Because getting you impregnate your clothes, doesn't it?
I
Everything.
used to feel really sorry for him because always seemed to get in his ward where his clothes were.
So were you doing the Ajwain treatment frequently, 1, and 2, which year is this, please?
Must be 82, I think, maybe at that stage. Yeah, 81, 82.
Okay.
Working
And then
with
what's the frequency of these Ajwain treatments then at that time? Because it seems it's fairly regular.
Well, I think everybody in the ashram was actually doing it all the time.
Oh, we did everything all the
We had
time.
the onions on the head, dry roasted on the head,
Yes.
and then other
Yeah,
people walking around with
sciences.
sort of big red or black lines,
Black also.
and
And then,
the
and then
Natranja,
honey in our eyes.
yes,
I don't know if you
honey,
ever did
the
honey in your
orange
eyes.
peel, zip, and yeah.
And the light bulb treatment, I remember because we had a room that was on the first floor and it had a frosted glass window, and people used to come to the light bulb that was bare. I mean, we didn't have a
Shade.
lampshade on it. It was just a bare bulb because it was quite, I don't know, it wasn't well decorated at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Basic.
It was very
Basic,
basic. It was very
Well,
basic.
we didn't have spare money for that.
And I used to see people's sort of hands looming up like a shadow.
Yeah. Putting a cloth on the bulb.
Putting a cloth on the bulb
So
to then put on your left
Because
Vishuddhi.
Shri Mataji said, you've got
Yeah.
too much electricity. That's your
Yeah.
problem.
And
So
it was actually
got
really
too much
lovely.
electricity.
It did feel very nice to put
Got to
the
sort
cloth
of
on the light
clear it
bulb
out,
and then put
you
it
know.
on the left Vishuddhi. But I remember it was just by our door and everybody used to go for that one because it was a
But I would recommend it these days. It's maybe it's a bit dangerous now.
It is health and
Maybe.
safety hazard for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we knew about health and safety, did we?
Oh, no, definitely not. That was,
Not recommended.
especially in later times with bigger building projects. I suppose the next ashram was Judy camps, was it? Was there anywhere in between?
Another problem was I just wanted to mention were lemons.
In
Getting
Chelsea
stuck
Road,
in the
yeah.
toilet.
Lemons, and
They
this,
blocked the
Blocking up the
sewer.
toilets.
yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
dear.
How would you dispose it of? Just bin them in the end.
cut them up.
Well,
Cut
there's
them up and
various,
put them in the toilets.
there was various kind of, people who had various ideas, and some people used to cut them up and some didn't. Some cut them one way and some cut them the other, and some took the top off, and some, whatever. But
And what did
basically,
mother say?
according, a lot of it, somebody would tell you mother had said, but you wouldn't be sure. So,
Yes.
you get all
That's
these
very
things.
interesting, Pat, because I know the treatment for lemons, you either cut it up like into small bits because you are kind of reducing this sort of boot to kind of tiny little fragments, or you plunged a fork into it and then roasted it over the gas.
Yes.
So
I know, and then that
it
even
black.
evolved. That even evolved into sitting meditating with half the lemon on your head and the other half in your hand.
Yeah.
Don't ask me what that was all about. I never got to the bottom of it.
I don't think mother ever did that before. I don't think that what she did was burning the lemon when she was in Finchley.
Yes,
Yes,
mother told
yes,
us
I
to do that a
remember.
lot.
I think
Yeah.
that's with
So what was
David
that?
Cole. Mother had lemons,
The-
lemons
The lemon,
all down his back, sellotape to him.
Yeah.
So he had this lemon.
Sellotape
the
to
lemons
each
wouldn't
chakra.
burn until you use them on yourself, and then when you use them,
But,
they would
but
go
actually,
black when you put them to the flame.
but,
You didn't have to put it in the flame, just near it.
Oh yeah,
And
near.
mother would say
but
that's the
actually, do you
boot.
remember, Morn? We used to have to burn our actual hands over the candle flame.
Oh yes, yeah.
And so you'd end up with a really black hand. Burn each finger for each chakra
Yeah,
and to do all
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
honey in the eyes. I
Yeah.
mean, that when I was in the first place, when we weren't in the ashrams, I used to get up at 3:30 in the morning every day and do every treatment under the sun. I also used to drink half a glass of salt water for some reason.
Oh, I did that, yes.
And then there was honey in my eyes, adjuan, and then I would do a full puja, and it would take 2 or 3 hours every morning. I was determined, to explode into some higher world. And in the end, it got more and more and more until the end. I did one. I remember I read the whole of the Devi Mahatmya during the puja, and then I read all the 1,000 names of Shiva, and then I got a crushing headache for 3 days.
Not stream at all, are you, Pat?
Nothing was too much. Nothing was too much. You just did everything you possibly could. To go,
Yeah, it was a bit too much.
Yeah.
Actually, Pat, you tended to do. You had a tendency to do things a bit to the extreme,
Well, I was desperate, because I was. I don't think I saw anyone else as crazy. Not crazy. I was crazy, but as badly caught up as I was, because mother said I'd exhausted every possible way to damage my chakras. The only one who I saw who was worse was that lady from Cambridge. I remember that the been to 3 of the heavyweight gurus.
Yeah.
Anyway,
shall we now take the topic of very briefly sharing, each one of you, miracles that mattered to you when you were in one of these ashrams, please?
It's a way to go thoughtless.
Yeah, any special conversation with Shri Mataji, any advice, anything that comes to your attention, please?
I can
It's just
remember
like one big long miracle, wasn't it? It was just
one of the seminars we went to. I think we'd been down to the West Country, and then on the way back, the lady who was with us, it was her parents' house that I think we'd used for the seminar. She was so full of vibration, she couldn't remember the way to the station. So Shri Mataji took over and said, right, okay, we're going to go this way, and then we're going to go this way, this way, this way. And eventually we arrived. But then I said, but Mother, I think we're about half an hour late. So she said, right, everybody out of the car. And so we all got out. And then I saw Mother, she was just abandoning. And then she said, go over and ask the guard what's happening. So I walked over, and the chap said, oh, don't worry, the train from London's half an hour late. Come in, it'll be here in a couple of minutes' time. So we all trooped in, got on the train, and then off we went, so it was just very miraculous, actually, like that. Yeah, lovely memory.
There was always some kind of extraordinary drama like that going on, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So you couldn't say, I mean, miracles, I don't know. It was just like, as I was saying, one long miracle, the whole thing, it was just so out of this world. you kind of half couldn't believe it was going on, and yet it was. So you just had to go with it, you know, and you just never knew what was going to happen next.
Actually, I think what I can remember mostly was the fact that if you had a very deep experience because you'd been working on your vibrations for a number of, I would say, days, even months, you know, when you reach a certain level, somehow Shimataji is aware of it, you know, she talks to you and she says, so you're trying to do this, aren't you? She knows exactly what you're trying to do and how far up you've gone, you know. Like one day she said to me, I know for about several months in Cheshire Road, I was meditating on that state of Lord Shiva, you know, above my Sahasrara, you know, and I could feel actually that my attention would go and start to float in a dimension which is much higher than Sahasrara. And then when Shimataji saw me, she said, so you're trying to get there, are you? She knows actually, she knows what you're doing, and she knows it, she knows exactly where you are and what you're actually, what your efforts, she can see it very clearly, you know.
Yeah, I mean, most of the miracles I experienced like that were early on when we first met Mother, around about that time. Remember that time we went to Three Bridges, Maureen, with that Indian community?
Yes.
And we ended up, that's the first time we did that stick dancing.
The stick dancing, yes, that was incredible.
But at one stage, I was just sitting in front of Mother, and suddenly I just became a reflection of Shri Mataji looking at herself, and I just was just stuck there, struck dumb, and then everything dissolved in this golden bliss, and then I kind of opened my eyes again, and Mother was looking at me, and she said, "Very good." It was a rare moment then, because mostly I was in a dreadful state.
But I must say my experience was a little bit opposite, because Mother said to you, very good. But when I saw Mother looking like a goddess, it was completely out of the blue in Caxton Hall. She just looked at me and she said, can you collect these coats and also the knives and forks? And I was so annoyed. I mean, in a way, I was so sorry. I felt so sorry that I couldn't just enjoy it, because I had to break it and do something else.
Well, she did that to me too, in Kabbalah. But can we just well, unless anyone else can think of any.
Yes, could we have Mark and Gail share a miracle? Just one, I think, we will conclude soon. So yeah, please, if you would be so kind as to share something. And meanwhile, if something comes to your attention, please do share.
I don't have anything really.
Thoughtless.
It wasn't, I don't think it was a miraculous time. It's like a magical time. Mother would come, and I cooked for Mother. I mean, it's bizarre.
What did you cook?
Grilled bacon and poached eggs.
Wow.
Mother, and how dare you laugh? It was really good. Mother said it was really nice, because Mother had been told by the doctor she had to have, I think it was an all-protein diet. And this was way before all these faddy diets.
When and where was this?
Now. This was when I was at Chelsea, at Dollis Hill, so 1980. And she came in and said, "Oh, I can only eat protein." So that was all we had. I think we had bacon and eggs. So I grilled some bacon and poached a couple of eggs. It was very nice.
And a nice cup of tea?
Well, I didn't make the tea, but yeah, she would have had tea.
Very
She
nice.
often drank tea at Dollis Hill, and she would sit with a bowl of chana at her hand, and you eat the chana. She said she was just putting the boots into it and consuming the boots. So yeah, it was miraculous anyway. But the only thing I can think of it was a meeting in the library in Harrow on the Hill, and I saw Mother through the. It was a working library, and we were in there. We were in the library itself. It wasn't a separate room, and I saw Mother walk in through the other side of a set of bookshelves, and she had a really blue cast to her face. As Krishna, and it was as if she was floating. She wasn't. She was walking. That's the only thing. The whole thing. I saw her at Dollis Hill. She would often work on the Sahaja Yogis, not always new ones, but they were sort of established. And I saw Crick Peter Pierce's neck, and I've never seen anyone have the neck cricked so violently and not be dead. He was if people people know, people are smiling there who remember Peter Pierce. He was quite a bit bigger than me. He was like a bull of a man. He didn't have a neck really. Sort of his head went straight to his shoulders. He was so thick set. And Mother had him sit down on the floor, sit cross-legged in front of her while she was sitting on this chair, and she cricked his neck. I tried to crick his neck and I couldn't do it. And she cricked his neck, and I thought she killed him because it was such. She had bizarrely, although Mother was only about 5 foot, she had such upper body strength. So I'm in the gym. She had such upper body strength. She pricked this guy's neck, and there was an awful, sickening sound. And he shook his head. He said, "Oh, thank you, Mother." He was like oblivious to what Mother had done. But it was. That's the only time I was really freaked out, because I thought, what Mother knew, as Djamel said, Mother knew everything. But it was as if she was trying to kill him. It was just massive. The most violent neck crick I've ever seen.
But one of the things we told us
that
we shouldn't do it.
We shouldn't do it, yeah.
Well, we found that out after trying. We tried, and there were all these
dozens and dozens
people staggering about. Yeah,
I must have cricked hundreds of necks.
I know. And then we decided
the way to do it, and everybody doesn't know. I mean, Shri Mataji, of course, knew it, but there are other professionals who know. But
but actually, Mother didn't tell us to do it.
Yes.
No, we copied.
We just assumed we were supposed to do it. So
we were okay to do it, yeah.
All these poor new people would come to a meeting and get their neck cricked and stagger off. I know. We had to stop it in the end.
Yeah, and they'd look
it reminds me though, this thing where in India, and we used to do it at home at the end of the day before retiring, after dinner, puja and everything, you would massage or press your parents' feet, especially mother, biological mother, and then you would pull the toes, and that used to give relief. So yeah, that was really a very beautiful, sweet detail that you shared, and all these lovely miracles. Gail, is there anything you'd like to share with us?
I was remembering when you talked about food, Mark, that did trigger when we were living in Bramham Gardens. Sometimes you used to drive Mother, Graham.
Yeah.
And one day Mother had guests. I can't remember. They were from the Far East somewhere, and she had lots of guests. And I was pregnant, and I really had this craving for dates. I really, really, really wanted dates. And I hadn't said anything to anybody. And you'd been driving Mother. And when you came back in the evening, you said, "Oh, Shri Mataji sent you a present." And it was the most enormous sort of branch full of dates that these guests had given to Mother, and then Mother gave them to Graham to give to me. So she, as you know, we've been saying, she knows everything.
Absolutely.
She knows absolutely everything. And it was just so sweet, because I really wanted to eat dates, and you know, I don't know why I didn't go to the shop and get some, but you know, we weren't always that sensible.
Nothing quite like getting it from Shri Mataji, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was just something I remembered.
And Shri Mataji would also host her diplomatic dinner parties and things, because I'm reminded of this memory that I'd read, probably, that some yoginis who were at probably Chelsham Road, I can't remember the ashram, but Gilmet was there. I think it was her recollection, where Shri Mataji called these yoginis, and it's a few of the yoginis went. I can't remember the names exactly. Any?
Is Gilmet there, Djamel? She being shy?
Let me go and call her. Maybe she'll talk.
While you do that, I do remember something, Sushmita, that
yes, please.
Of course, as a diplomat with CP, was often invited to very high-profile dinner parties, and she actually said that she went to have dinner with Margaret Thatcher at 10 Downing Street. And she said, of course, they had all these gold plates and knives and forks and everything. But do you know what? At the end of the meal, they served this rhubarb ice cream.
Yeah,
My husband, poor CP, he was ill for days after this. And she said, I had to work on him so much. You know, this rhubarb ice cream was deadly. You know, so it's very funny that she sort of wasn't impressed by all the showy stuff, but, you know, they served rhubarb ice cream, which was
it occurs to me that we'll probably have to do another program on ashrams because there's still a few to go.
Okay, yes, we would actually, because this is probably not, it's just the tip of the iceberg of memories from the ashram.
I think
So
Shudi Camp
feels
was,
like
was
that.
a big
Shudi
Shudi
Camp.
Camp's
yeah,
an
I'm
episode
sure
in
you could
itself.
have a
Yeah,
lot
Shudi
of
Camp.
stories.
There's also Hounslow.
And
And also there was, of course, Brompton Square, which it wasn't exactly an ashram, but it was a huge collective.
It was a big training ground as well, wasn't it? From
We did massive, we did work. Dozens and dozens of us there were working. I was working there for at least a year. I can't remember how long now, but lots of people were there at different times. So we, you know, and other people maybe could come and talk.
Yeah, well, Finn for Shudi Camps, definitely.
And also there was Bala's ashram. Bala is not here, but he.
Oh, yes,
the
into
Derby
the
ashram.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes, we have to do a part 2 of it as well. And Djamel, have you been successful at the mission?
No, not really. I have to work on her, I think. You know, she's too shy.
That's fine.
Oh,
That's fine. Do give our regards to her.
give her our love, please.
And yes, definitely. And we hope we'll talk to her in our next session of memories, where we will have some more yogis. So thank you all so much, Maureen and Mark from the north of England, Pat and Grazyna from Sheffield, Djamel from France, and Graham and Gail from East Sussex, shall we say? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Beautiful memories. Thank you, Shri Mataji, for these beautiful experiences you've given us all. Jai Shri Mataji.
Jai Shri Mataji.
Jai Shri Mataji.